So thank you for your patience, everyone. So good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the second workshop for this rulemaking. My name is Amelia Boyd. I'm the program manager for the WMC and will be facilitating today's session. This workshop is being recorded and we'll post the recording to our YouTube channel soon. The documents we'll be discussing are available on our website at wmc.wa.gov. In this slide deck, the globe, which links to our website, and the YouTube icons are clickable and will take you directly to those resources. For attendees, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please use the raise hand function. We'll call on you as soon as we can. When offering comments, please avoid reading aloud any written remarks that are already included in the materials. These workshops are intended to be collaborative with a back and forth exchange of ideas about the proposed language. So before we get started, I'll take a roll call of our panelists and staff. When I call your name, please introduce yourself. Marlon?
Good afternoon, Marlon Basco with the Department of Health as a policy analyst, and I support the commission in making.
Thank you. Dr. Chang?
Hi, this is Dr. Chang. I'm a family physician. I'm also one of the commissioners. Sorry, my camera is not working, so it won't be able to put my face on the screen.
Thank you. Marissa?
Hi, Marissa Courtney, licensing manager for the Washington Medical Commission.
Danielle?
Hi, I'm Danielle Hacker. I'm the administrative assistant and support for the Washington Medical Commission.
Thank you. Heather?
Good afternoon, Heather Carter, Assistant Attorney General, Legal Advisor.
Dr. Khan?
Hi, my name is Kutsia Khan. I'm one of the commissioners and I'm an internist and an addiction medicine doc.
Micah?
Good afternoon, Micah Matthews, Deputy Executive Director with the Medical Commission.
And Ms. Blake, if you will introduce yourself and then begin the script.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Christine Blake. I'm a public member of the Commission with background in healthcare administration. I'll be the presiding officer for this rules workshop. Today is Monday, August 3rd, 2026, and it is 1:07 p.m. This meeting is being held via Teams webinar. The rule being discussed today is regarding establishing a pilot program and a limited license for international medical graduates. The CR 101, or Pre-Proposal Statement of Inquiry, was filed as WSR 2614046 on June 25th, 2026. Ms. Boyd, please present our proposed timeline for rule development.
So here's our proposed timeline for this rulemaking, which may be adjusted if additional workshops are needed. Does anyone have any questions about this timeline? If so, please use the raise hand function and I will call on you. Seeing none. Blake, you can go ahead and read the next little part.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. We will now work through the rest of the agenda items. We hope to be finished by 3:45 p.m. The next item on the agenda is the discussion of the proposed draft language. Ms. Boyd, please present the draft language.
Okay, so this is the second workshop for this rulemaking, but we made some changes, and so we're going to start back at the beginning. All the changes that we made, for the most part, are in red. And so we will just go through each section, and if commissioners or anyone else has any questions or have suggestions for language changes, just please, commissioners, you can just speak up, and then attendees, if you would just please raise your hand and we will call on you in the order that you raise your hand. So our first proposed new section is 371, which is Clinical Experience Graduate Program Pathway Established. And the one thing that we added in sub 1, I guess we added a couple of things in sub 1, is that we wanted to make it clear that this pathway is intended for international medical graduates who are not otherwise eligible for full physician licensure under Chapter 18.71 RCW because they have not completed an approved United States or Canadian postgraduate medical education program. That was a request from the first workshop that we make that more clear. So commissioners, do you have any questions about this addition, concerns, or do you feel it's necessary?
No question for me.
It looks good. I don't have any questions either.
Ms. Blake, is it all right with you?
It is all right with me. Could we just enlarge it a little bit on the screen?
Sure. Go ahead, Micah.
Just, this is me being picky. Instead of saying Canadian Postgraduate Medical Education Program, could we say Postgraduate Training Program?
Sure. I'm fine with that change.
Yes, agreed.
So if everybody likes this one, we are just going to accept this change because this is new sections. We won't leave it in red because we're not changing existing rule. So we're just going to accept that change. And then the next change we have in sub 1 is we just changed like some of the wording in this section. So let me go ahead and accept this one so it'll read better. Oops. Turn the tracking off. Okay, so now this sentence will read, the purpose of the pathway is to allow qualified clinical experience license holders to become eligible for a full unrestricted physician license issued by the Commission under Chapter 18.71 RCW to practice primary care as defined in this rule. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about how that is worded now?
I actually do have a question. When
Sure.
it says the purpose of the pathway is to allow qualified clinical experience license holders, could we elaborate a little bit on that? What is a qualified clinical experience license holder?
So I think Micah, you can go ahead if you want.
Oh, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, I think what the qualified piece means that they have to have been already holding a clinical experience license prior to July 1 of this year. I think that's what it means, right, Micah?
Yeah, so as we go down, you're going to see that, to enter the pathway, they must. And so everything under sub 2 would be the qualified.
Yeah.
So
Do we need to make that more clear?
I think so because since there is no context to this here, I mean, maybe we need to I think elaborate a little bit more on what does it mean. Okay, yeah, I think that would be nice. So what if I'm understanding it correctly? In order to be eligible, they need to fulfill. Okay, it looks like we also have a question. To become eligible for a full unrestricted physician license issued by the commission under, okay. All right, maybe if we read it further, probably it will start making more sense to me. Yeah.
So I just want to elaborate on Dr. Boomkar's question. So their question's a little bit confusing, Micah, because they're asking what happens to those who enter the pathway after July 1. So it's
Oh, I
not,
see.
it's people who have, so the only folks that are qualified for this pathway are the ones that already held a clinical experience license prior to July 1 of this year, because that's what's in the statute. So if someone gets a clinical experience license after that date, then they would not be eligible to become part of this pathway, this pilot program. So I don't know if that answers that question.
I wonder if it would be helpful to have sort of a timeline, because it does look like there is a bit of a confusion here about July 1st. Are we saying, so for instance, for someone to enter a US residency training program, which starts on July 1st every year, they have to go through the ERAS application process that is the year before, opens in August. I think stays open till I believe sometime in fall, and then there are interviews, and then there's a match that happens, an RMP match that happens in spring of the following year. So should we maybe specify some sort of timeline so that the candidates who are looking for it are aware that these are the, this is the timeline that they have to follow, and they have to get all their documentation or their credentialing in order? Because I have not seen something like that as to what is the deadline for the application. Does it make sense?
Micah, can you speak to that?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding you, Dr. Khan. So you mentioned the ERAS applications and everything, but that wouldn't apply for these folks. Because
I'm just drawing a parallel. I understand
gotcha.
that. I'm just drawing a parallel that for that ERAS application to go through, for that, be eligible for that NRMP match, they have a timeline that they need to do this, in advance. So in order to be eligible. So do we have something like that here?
To some degree, yes. So the first piece is under sub 2. It does talk about, in order to be eligible for this, you have to have been licensed on or before July 1, 2026. At that point, we start talking about a prerequisite 24-month period, which is 2B, of supervised continuous practice. And then you have, in the actual pathway portion, a 24-month supervised practice provision. So you've got the date that is the cutoff for people being able to get into the program. And then you have the two 24-month periods. One is prerequisite, one is the actual pathway itself, along with the assessments and exams.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Thank you.
And then Dr. Boomkar, did that answer your question? Did Dr. Cleef answer your question?
Hey, hi there. I'm Dr. Boomkar. These are the questions brought forward by majority of the applicants that are working with us in the program. We have a lot of people that have joined after the July 1st deadline, and they really want to know what their future looks like, right? So this is coming from the actual people on the ground. And the answer I'm getting or gathering from this one is that they may not be eligible for the unrestricted, unlimited primary care license until the committee decides eventually, depending on how this pilot goes. And if this passes and the pilot is successful, I'm under the impression that those who are enrolled after July 1st may become eligible.
Correct. So
Okay.
just to clarify, it's not this group. We're required to follow what the statute says, and in this case, the statute that was passed is a pilot project for those who are licensed on or before July 1. That number is about 133 license holders who could be eligible for this. And as I said in the chat, we are the medical commission is required to give annual reports to the legislature so they understand how it's going. They've asked for some very specific information ranging from demographics to any disciplinary rates or actions that may occur. And at that point, they could decide to not only open it up to the remainder of the clinical experience licensees, those who maybe come back or were licensed after July 1, but there's also an open question of, do they open this up to domestic grads who didn't match into a residency?
All right. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Khalif.
Yeah, I just have one question. Micah, what if somebody, let's say, was licensed before and then maybe, they didn't renew their license, and then now coming back to the CE, I'm coming back to this pathway, but let's say maybe they were licensed in 2022 or 2023 or something like that.
I'm going to phone a friend and ask Heather to jump on this, because there's some confusing case law on this that I'm not sure if it applies correctly or not. So basically, once we issue a license, even if it's expired, we have jurisdiction over it, and I'm not sure how that would apply in this situation. So I'm going to ask Heather to opine.
Yeah, I need to look at the specific language in the statute real quick to see what it says, if it says active or what kind of language it uses, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And I have another question about, so when we talk about under this section B, when it says have completed 24 months of continuous supervised clinical practice, do we have some specs on how do candidates find these practices? And if a clinical practice or a clinic wants to get enrolled, what's the process? Do we have something like that available?
So there's not an enrollment process for the clinics. So part of the whole application process is that they have to have a letter of nomination from the facility. So all of that's already taken care of before they apply.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
And then Amelia, if you could scroll up to the change that we made in sub 1 at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say this. The purpose of this pathway is to allow qualified clinical experience license holders, and then I would say as defined under sub 2 of this section,
Okay,
to become eligible.
so are we good with this change?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I think we're done with sub 1 now. All right, so now we can move on to the changes we did in sub 2. Obviously, we can't see all of sub 2, so we'll work through what we can see. Okay. So again, this lays out how they can become part of this pathway. And this is in statute, so we can't really make any change to 2A. 2B, we just did some language changing to make it make more sense. I'm going to go ahead and accept the change so you can read it as it's been changed. So now it says the required supervised clinical practice may occur before the effective date of these rules and does not need to occur at an eligible practice site as defined in WAC 246-919-372 sub 3. The commission may accept 24 months of prerequisite supervised practice if the practice was completed after July 1, 2022. Is that clear enough? Does anyone have any questions about this change?
I do not.
Don't see
Dr.
any
Bumkar,
questions.
is your comments in the chat related to this section? It looks like it might be, but I'm not sure.
74, no.
Yes, I was just wondering, this question also came up. I actually shared this document with some of my candidates. what happens if they have a break in the 2 years of practice? Some of them go on family leave or they have a medical leave of 3 months. So how does it affect the cohort?
Sure. So there's two aspects that you're talking about. So I'll address what's in your comment first. The clinical experience license came online in 2021, and so we had to kind of draw a line of what would be acceptable and how old the prerequisite experience could be, and so that's why we landed on after July 1, 2022. If you look at the first sentence of sub B, that is directly from the statute. And so for the prerequisite time, it has to be continuous supervised clinical practice. Now, that is not the case under the 24 months of the pathway. So the second 24-month period is more flexible with respect to any potential breaks. But the language in the statute is continuous supervised clinical practice.
Okay, so for the current 24 months period, we can consider FMLAs, let's say time taken for processing a visa or, parental leave. I have like a candidate that went out of the country for a month because her dad passed away. How does this affect the continuous? Because I'm getting too many requests for long leave periods. Like one guy is going to get married for 2 months. And so there is no language in the way we've done it, right? So there's no minimum FTE, there's no minimum hours or clinical sessions. How am I, as a supervisor, going to deal with this request for absences?
Well, I think I want to ask the opinion of the commissioners. What would you consider too long of a break? And I'm also going to bring in our licensing manager, Marissa Courtney, because we do require chronology reported on our license applications, and I'm not sure what the longest break that has to be explained is.
90 days or greater is what we would need explanation for.
All right. Does it affect the pathway and the evaluations? We are supposed to do evaluations, like 5 evaluations in the first 2 years. And, so technically when I was doing medical residency in internal medicine, we weren't allowed to take that long of a break. I'm not sure Dr. Khan, coming from the same background of training can agree with that, but 3 months is a long time for a residency position also. Can this be reconsidered?
I think we have a hand up as well.
Yeah, I
too.
think let's get that question and then I can respond.
Go ahead, Dr. Fleming.
I would tend to agree with what Dr. Boomkart has raised, because I find it with some candidates is they have figured out how to take that FMLA and then add to it the other federal part of that. And so you find candidates that are taking off now for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months out of their programs because they can. And our hands are pretty much tied with those candidates when they say, hey, I'm going to here or I'm going to there and I'm going to be gone X number of months. Number one, it's very difficult as a supervisor in a training program to ensure there's continuity of training as they're going through the program. As Dr. Boomkar pointed out, when you're in a residency, you don't get that latitude. You may get 30 days if you've got an illness, but after that, you're out of the program. So I would support language that would say that would be similar to a residency, that if you're in the program, you're in the program. It's not there for you to kind of come and go as you please. It's there to get the specific training, to have that supervision, to gain that knowledge and that experience, and that's where the focus should remain. So I think Dr. Boomkar's points are well taken on that one.
I think I do agree.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think, sorry. I thought I would just jump in and quickly
Sure.
I think I do make sense that, when you're in a training, as much as it may sound like kind of too tough or a little unfair to some folks, but unfortunately, that's how medical residency trainings are. 4 weeks is all you get. And that also sometimes I think it's good for folks to be, sort of more organized, and I understand things happen. So the only thing I would say is that, and we can talk about it later, also that in the wording, if we could show some flexibility and we could maybe make it sound like that it could be addressed case by case, because I do realize some folks, especially when we talk about visas and people are leaving the country and re-entering the country, and in current climate, things have been challenging for folks. So that's just the only thing I would say, is that maybe just leaving something out there which would allow folks, even the supervising clinicians or the practices, to have some leeway there. But in reality, 4 weeks is all you get for a medical training program.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. I do agree with most folks, but I also want for us to be mindful that there are some really legitimate cases where somebody really does need to go on leave, and we don't want to create a scenario where doctors are kind of stuck, or can't take care of their families, or what happens when somebody's pregnant, what happens when somebody wants to go to maternity leave. So I don't know. I think that, if we are creating these, rules, I think there has to be maybe like a way where the commission can have some checks and balances on the top of the process. So that's just my idea.
So I do want to jump in here quickly. Mohammed, this is pretty common even in medical residency. You can have people going on family leaves. They could be pregnant. They could have babies in military service and all that stuff, right? But they do follow the same norms for anybody else who doesn't have these hardships. And anytime they take beyond the family leave is added to the end of their curriculum of medical residency. And so let's say the medical residency ends on June 14th. They do have to extend it until August or September to complete that period that is required by ACGMA.
Go ahead, Patrick. If you're speaking, you're muted still.
Well, while we're waiting for, oh no, he came off mute. There we go.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to echo those last comments as a former residency director. People definitely get pregnant and extend their residency time, and that part's perfectly normal. And sometimes, to the annoyance of the residency director, it's 2 or even 3 pregnancies. And they're human beings. It's allowed to happen. What you might consider here, however, is putting a cap on the total extension of time. Because for residencies are extended on a year-by-year, it's a year-by-year contract, even though it's a 3 or 4 year program or a 5-year program. And so there's always that risk if somebody's really taking advantage of the situation to say, we're not going to extend it if there's any further delays. And so rather than disallowing them because they're pregnant or disallowing them because of some family catastrophe, just say this program must be completed by X number of years regardless. Thank you.
So
Micah,
I wonder.
Go ahead.
So in B, right before the last sentence, I wonder if we say something to the effect of, are we satisfied with 30 days, or do we want to say 45 days as a max?
Go ahead, Dr. Fleming.
I like the idea that was brought up of setting a cap on 30 days. I think most programs can work with that. when it comes to pregnancies, in our state, we allow both male and female to take leave for pregnancies. Having that 90 days off is just too much when you're in a training program. I think 30 days is reasonable for that. And then after that, it becomes I think something for the commission to take a look at whether they want to. I do like the idea of also extending the program if the person's gone for that 30 days, if the candidate's gone, that 30 days is then added to the end of their program. The other thing that I've seen in the past several years is candidates who like to bounce between programs also. So they'll stay in one program for a year or two, then they move to another program, and then they may come back. I would love to see something along the lines, once you're in that program and in that track, you stay in it, unless there's just something so mitigating that they need to move to a different program. For whatever reason. So you get some consistency and stability in terms of supervision of those candidates, evaluation of those candidates, and then reporting back to the commission as you've outlined. So it's food for thought there.
Okay. I think, I understand the last point for not this prerequisite period, but the next one. Because that's really where they're dialing in where they're going to end up practicing with that primary care license. With respect to what could come before that last sentence, I think we could say something to the effect of gaps in practice beyond, the standard 30-day PTO medical leave or whatever must be added to the end of the 24 months. So, and I don't know if you want to write this, Amelia, because I'm workshopping it as I'm saying it. It must be extended to the end of the 24-month training period. So there's actually 24 months of supervised practice.
And you want
30,
90.
30 days.
30
30
days.
days.
30 days. Okay. We'll obviously have to reword it. Okay. Gaps in practice beyond 30 days must be added? Or how did you say that? Sorry, I was busy processing.
Must
Is there any
be,
way that you can say must be completed prior to or something? However,
Or maybe if you say any gaps of 30 days or more do not count towards the 24 months.
Oh, that's
there
better.
you go.
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
I'll take that.
Yeah, I like that one too.
yeah.
Okay, is that all right? Or do you want it worded differently?
And that reads fine to me.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Okay, if everyone's okay with that change, yes.
This is Heather. So just any gaps in practice of more than, yeah.
Mm.
So we know what the gap is.
Okay, and nothing about it must be completed, or just that's good enough.
I think it looks good to me.
Okay. Dr. Chang, did you have any concerns or comments?
Yeah, I just I agree with pretty much everybody. I just I'm thinking that we probably want to at least kind of matching what the existing residency programs rules and just so that we don't deviate, and also don't want the say too long a period of absence and then create a way of gaming the system, and to contour that 24-month period, because it is a form of, say, want to make sure that they understand the U.S. Medical practice process, regardless of their background in another country, just so that they can practice here. Yeah, so I think 30 days is enough, especially, considering, that we definitely want to have a solid, education, or clinical supervised practice period of time to say to that, so that create a standard for everyone in this program.
So because Dr. Chang mentioned, make it similar to the residency program. I don't see anything in our rule that talks about a gap in practice. Is there something in statute that talks about a gap? Because I know Marissa mentioned that if it's more than 90 days, it has to be.
No, I think it's just an internal application policy for chronology, but I do not believe reading that in statute.
Okay.
What about any kind of regulatory compliance, Marissa?
So we do, and Micah, you may have to quote me on the actual WAC or rule or statute, but I believe we have something in writing that states that you must have completed with positive or forward movement in your residency program, or cannot have any negative remarks in more than two. Yeah, thank you, Micah. You can't have more than two, like you cannot have negative remarks in more than two residency programs in order to qualify. So like, let's say you have a provider who went to 3 different programs, completed, 24 months between the 3, but had negative remarks in those. We couldn't count those towards meeting the requirement.
I just put it in the chat.
Thanks, Micah.
Okay, where is this?
That is WAC 246-919-330 sub 4 under postgraduate medical training.
Oh, I see. Only satisfactory. Okay, yeah. I just didn't see anything about a gap.
Yeah, no gaps.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So I was hoping we could just borrow the same language, but it doesn't have anything about a gap. All right.
Yeah, my feeling is that any more time that we allowed, or any rules extending beyond 4 weeks or 1 month, we're now going to the HR territory, and then this is very not what we think I want to get into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we definitely don't regulate HR. Okay, so I think there's a conversation between Dr. Boomkar and Dr. Khalif. So are both of you, is there anything we need to change based on that conversation about candidates? Go ahead, Dr. Khalif.
No, I was just responding. I think so. Dr. Boomcom was just responding to, I think so, but I don't know. I might be wrong. But to Dr. Stan Fleming's comment, and I was thinking the same as well. Like, I think if you do hours of training somewhere, or if you do like certain training somewhere in residency, it does qualify for your ACGME credits. So, I think basically, people should be able to move. We don't want to restrict people and saying, hey, you have to stay here for 2 years. So I just think that's a better language. So basically just keep it as is. Like, I don't think there's like any additional language that we should include, based on my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Fleming.
Well, I would respond to that by saying, having worked in residency programs and set up residency programs and actually been the president of a university with a med school. In residencies, we don't allow residents to just haphazardly change programs back and forth. They typically will be allowed to leave a program under certain mitigating circumstances. Oftentimes, if they're dropped from a residency, certainly they can apply to another residency program and carry over. Uh, Not always guaranteed that they can carry over the experience they had in their previous residency. It's really driven by that residency director who evaluates the program and what they accomplished and the recommendations from their supervisors. So I just want to be real clear. We don't, even in the ACGME side of the house, allow residents to like, I'm going to do 1 year here and I don't like it, so I'm going to go do another year someplace else and another year somewhere else. Usually when you get accepted into a residency program, it's pretty much well understood. That's where you're going to stay. That's where you're going to train. And hopefully that's where you're going to graduate from. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Okay. So are we good with sub B now, or sub B with this addition?
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna accept this change. All right, now we will move further down into sub 2. See if I can fit all of C and D on the screen. Do you have any questions about sub C or D?
Looks good.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Are you good, Miss Blake?
Oh, yes, looks good to me. Thanks. Yeah.
All right. Moving to E and F.
Looks good.
It's fine.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you. Now we're moving to sub 3.
Looks good.
Okay.
Yep, looks good. Thanks.
Okay, moving to sub 4.
I think that comment's resolved. There was a discussion that B might get split into 2, and we never did that.
Gotcha. I shall delete that thread then. Thank you.
It looks good.
Yeah, looks good.
Looks good to me.
All right, moving to 5.
Looks good.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, looks good.
All right, moving to 372. So we did change the name of this a little bit. It was just really long. And so I gave Micah some options and he picked this one. So we like to make it succinct. So, and then we added this change to sub 1. We struck what we had completely before and just changed it to this. And I think it's fine, but
Yeah, looks good.
Yep, it's fine.
right. Accept
Looks good.
that. I will go back and make sure that this is accurate. And I've got to change the way it's written, but I'm just going to make a note for myself. Okay. Okay,
Amelia, I just looked and it still applies.
Okay. I just need to fix the way that it's written. Like these are supposed to be no space. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so moving on to sub B.
Dr. Khalif has his hand.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just had like, are we at the sites yet? Like clinical facility sites? No, it's not yet, right?
Can't remember what section that's in.
Okay, I'll just reserve my comment till we get there then. Oh, it was kind of.
It is under this section, Dr. Khalif. It's just a little bit further down.
Yeah, so I just had will the commission post the sites that are in the last 24 months pathway? Because like my fear is like somebody gets an offer and the site says, "Oh, we qualify," and we got an approval from the commission, but they're actually like not those type of facilities. So maybe somebody does 2 years without even knowing like that facility was a qualified facility. So is there like a way where IMGs that are looking for the right facilities can verify on the commission website?
There isn't, but they would not be authorized because the first part of this is you're looking at sub B right there is it requires a new nominating letter and the licensing staff will be assessing if it's a qualifying site or not. So there's already a stop in place that would prevent them from moving forward.
Okay, awesome. That sounds good. Thank you. I think you're on mute, Amelia.
Sorry. So there will be a document on our website. So we have a page dedicated to these license types, and that document will live there, and it'll talk about the process, and then it'll have the list of the approved sites.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions about subset B?
Looks good.
Looks good.
Great.
Moving on to C.
The last line, an updated or new practice agreement must be submitted and approved prior to beginning the graduate pathway program. Could you explain this a little bit, Micah? Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
So that's the stopgap that Dr. Khalif was asking about. So let's just game this out. Someone has done 24 months of their prerequisite continuous supervised experience, and so now they've completed all the other requirements that we saw above, and they are eligible to go into the graduate pathway program now. So they need to have 24 months of practice, supervised practice at a qualifying site. But if we didn't institute an updated practice agreement that clearly defines this is an eligible site, there would not be any sort of a stop in the process to make sure that someone doesn't do what Dr. Khalif said, which is do 48 months of practice thinking that they were at a qualifying site when in fact they weren't, and they got their 2 years wasted. So this C is directly addressing that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Dr. Fleming?
Yeah, Mike, I think you may have just answered my question, but just to be clear, I was just advocating one more time to the commission, strongly recommending some kind of continuity in the training. So, it's a 48-month program, but if the first 24 months are at a specific site, again, without changing back and forth, unless there's something really mitigating that would require that. Does this then answer that question where they would be at least one site for 24 months, and if they really want to move to another place, they can do that in their last 24 months? Or how? I'm just trying to get some clarity there, but I thought you had answered it.
Sure. So I'll just opine my intent as I was drafting this and just being involved in the process and reading the bill. It doesn't provide, the bill doesn't provide a restriction on sites. In the commission in the fairly recent past on the traditional residency pathway actually had a rule in place that required essentially 24 months at a continuous practice at a single residency site. That created so many licensing problems and made people ineligible that shouldn't have been, that I hesitate to put something like this in here. And so my thinking here is the first 24 months, it's a prerequisite, and I'm less concerned about if they're at a consistent site or not. I want them to have the forward progress. I want them to have 24 months, and if they take a gap, as it was well pointed out, that needs to be made up. This period, the 24 months of pathway, I think I'm more in agreement that it needs to be consistent, but I don't want to run into the same problem that we had again in the traditional residency pathway where we say you have to do all 24 months at a single site. That's going to invalidate people. I can guarantee it. There are conflicts that happen personality wise. Maybe a clinic shuts down and I don't want to have someone start at zero. And frankly, just reading the tea leaves of what's coming financially for this state, specifically for rural health, I can easily see someone who is doing hospitalist or family med stuff at say a rural hospital, and it closes in the middle of this, and then they have to start over. That's not something that I really want to subject these folks to. I can see a scenario where maybe we say, well, Dr. Khalif just suggested maybe the last 2 years should be consistent in the same specialty. I think that's fair. In fact, I think that's more than fair. But the other piece that would be a problem is if we say that say it's a large organization and they've got multiple practice sites, but there's only one site that they declared as eligible, but maybe there's a workforce need that moves them to a different site. Is that going to reset the clock on them, or is that considered a different site? And so that's the stuff that we're going to come up against if we get super specific about you have to stay in one place for 24 months.
Those are great points, Micah, but could those be, when you have those one-offs like that, could those not be submitted to the commission, and then the commission determines, that hospital closed or that program closed, and so it's legit for them to change during that particular window? At least there's a checks and balance there if you have that in there, versus just folks kind of changing back and forth kind of willy-nilly throughout that period. I just don't see consistency in education or training when you allow for that kind of flexibility.
All right, and looks like we got Dr. Bumkar.
Yeah, thank you. I actually wanted to go back to the question about, does this happen a lot in medical residency programs? And although it doesn't happen very often, it does happen when we have candidates requesting to move within the program or from one program in one state to another for family reasons or for whatever reasons, and that has been allowed by program directors in the past, in which the program director gives them permission to move, the other program accepts them. And also the ACGME credits for those 12 months or 24 months they have been spent in that program are credited to the board. And it may be more difficult in a residency match because you have to go through a match process. This is not a residency program. We are trying to get some ideas from them to move this along, but we can't be strictly following everything that they do because there's a reason they do those things, right? Because they have to fill up those gaps from the match. Match happens once in a year, so they can't really have this happening all year round. And that's just my personal opinion.
All right, commissioners, so we've got a couple of different things. I can see a path forward where we could say, starting in C at that second sentence, all 24 months of supervised clinical practice under the graduate program must occur at an eligible practice site and in the same specialty. And then a new sentence saying the 24 months should occur at a single site. So it's not mandatory. It still gives the commission flexibility to deal with case by case basis, but it also communicates intent.
Okay, can you repeat what you wanted that second part to say? Sorry.
And in the same specialty, and then a new sentence saying the 24 months of supervised practice should occur at a single site.
Should occur?
Should, not shall.
Okay.
I like that, Micah.
This is Heather. So I think that's gonna be difficult for Marissa. So she's gonna have to bring everybody back to the commission who has more than one site. Is that what you want?
No, but I think
so. So you want to say not more than 2 unless approved by the commission or something like that.
I mean, I'm fine with that. But we've got people wanting to talk.
Yeah,
looks like
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, but there can be employers, like I am working with an employer who has like 50 plus sites. And I do move around people based on their commute or the practice setting they want to be, maybe a clinic, inpatient versus SNF. And so if you restrict that to one site, the exposure and the experience they are getting with the same supervisor, with the same employer is so limited. And so I don't want to use the word site, but maybe an employer and the supervisor maybe.
Well, we don't get into the employer piece, but what I will say is our practice agreement already allows for multiple practice sites. And in this case, we're talking about eligible sites under the statute. So there's some specific qualifiers for those. So we don't have a lot of leeway there. So one example is it talks about a physician employment group. It doesn't say where. So I mean, I'll just pick on Dr. Fleming real quick. He's effectively a physician employment group, and they serve all sorts of residential homes, SNFs, that sort of thing. And so they list to some degree where they're practicing or the setting, but it's still an employment group, and that's the eligible site. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. It does make sense. And my example here was clearly because we do have sites in addition to nursing homes or clinics. We also have inpatient, and the requirement for supervisor from the credentialing board of the hospitals is different. They want somebody who is maybe in hospitalist experience as a supervisor than a primary care practice, right? I know last time we talked about primary care, how do you define it? Does hospitalist fit? And then I went to the credentialing committee, and they are very narrow. They're very narrow in terms of the specifics of primary care. They do not allow primary cares to be supervisors, right? So in a setting like that, if I have a candidate who wants to move from a nursing home to an inpatient setting, but the inpatient won't allow the same supervisor, is that like a allowed change between the same employer? I don't want to confuse anybody. Like say we have like multiple supervisors and we are exchanging supervisors so they can get more narrow experience in the practice that they're going to go under.
So you're talking about them switching specialties in the last 24 months?
Specialties, let's say primary care to hospital medicine, which again in this document is the same umbrella as primary care.
I mean, I'll defer that to the commissioners. What do they think?
I'm a little bit confused. Could you please
Okay. So let me be more specific. Let's say I have an ex-candidate that's joined my program and is now, rotating through a nursing home and getting trained there, or maybe rotating through a clinic and get trained there for a period of 1 year, and then they want to get experience in a hospital, like an inpatient hospitalist experience. Can I move them from a clinic or a nursing home into the hospital and let them practice there for the next 1 year? Because for this agreement, primary care includes hospital as well as primary care clinic
I get that.
practice.
I get
right?
that. So I think
So,
going back to what
yeah.
Micah was saying, in the PLAs, I think we have the ability to list more than one sites. Would that fulfill this? Because it looks like it's the same attending physician or the same supervisor. It's just different clinical settings, SNF versus outpatient versus inpatient. So
Correct.
if we
So
have
supervisor-
multiple,
Dr. Khan, the supervisor may not be the same because supervisor has to be credentialed in that particular hospital. And not all supervisors are credentialed in the inpatient setting. So can we choose a different supervisor that has credentialing in the hospital setting?
I think then that because I completely understand where you're coming from, and I think that needs to be looked at only because when we are, the entire verbiage is around the supervisor. So I think then that means we have to redefine or we have to add further addendums under that. So I think that might get a little bit complicated. If you have some specific examples, where, because it really has to do with, we want a point of contact, right? Almost like a program director or someone. So I think in this particular scenario, this might get a little bit complicated. I don't know. What does everyone else think?
So to answer your question, Dr. Khan, we will have a contact in the form of a CMO medical director because they have to do the nominating letter itself. So there will be a central point of contact.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's the case,
yeah,
if that's the case, then I think as long as everybody's on the same page, because typically, for instance, I'll give you an example because I do work with medical residents, and we do have multiple sites and the PLAs for each site, but then that rotation is under one attending physician. So I think if we could clarify that, I'm pretty sure it could be done. But I would like to see some more specifics, I guess. And if we could have like a almost I don't know if CMOs are as much involved in this sort of work. So I want to say maybe like a medical director of the facility. So there has to be some consistency is I think what I'm getting at is that we want to make sure that we're not like we have one person named and then that person never comes in contact with the trainee, right? So to speak.
Right.
So in order for us to maintain some sort of accountability, we want to make sure that, these things are well defined.
And I just want to.
I agree with that. I think it needs to be someone who is also in clinical practice, not just someone who is a CMO, or they should be a hands-on provider.
Correct.
That
And so
would be
to clarify, we've run into this already under the clinical experience program, and we've been able to successfully navigate it. The law gives us a nice stick, so to speak, where we've had organizations try and get around that by saying, oh, we're special, or we're organized differently and you just need to adapt to us. We don't. The law is very clear what we can and cannot do. So we do, to answer what I'm seeing in the chat, yes, we do have the ability for a CMO, medical director, SVP clinical, whatever you want to call it. It's all kind of the same bucket. And they're the ones that do the nominating letter. If they have a program where they are doing, as Dr. Bumkar said, you're doing a year in SNF LTAC and you're doing a year in hospital, that's entirely possible. And that can be done through the practice agreement, through the supervision agreement.
Perfect. Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you so much. Thank you.
But you're not saying the CMO is the supervising physician, Micah?
They could be if they are in the right, I guess, setting. So there are some medical directors, CMOs, who might be more hands-on. I'm thinking of a certain past commissioner, in fact, who made his acceptance of the CMO position contingent on him being able to do 50% clinical practice. So that's entirely possible. I think as we go down, when it starts talking about the requirements for the supervising physician, you'll see that if a CMO takes that on, they are going to be directly involved.
Awesome. I think that's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment on in the same specialty. I understand the 24 months of supervised clinical practice should occur at a single site. I think, if I'm okay with this language, if we can include more language that says, like, unless somebody reports abuse, and we define abuse, whether it's like underpay, any kind of thing that somebody's going across. Because my fear is there's one site out there that grossly underpays an IMG, and they that opens to abuse. So, and right now the system, the thing that checks abuse right now in the system is IMGs can freely move, they can go someplace else that appreciates their talent. So I think we should address that, in my opinion.
And Mohammed, while I agree, I'm not sure how we can. The commission has, when it comes to employment issues, the commission has some limited statutory authority. So an example, we get a complaint about physician pay, or we get a complaint about what we effectively call HR issues, we're closing it, because that is in a personnel employment issue, and we don't get into those as the regulator. If it's fraud, if it's, physical assault, that's different. But those sorts of things that you're talking about, I think are still allowable with the language that we're looking at right now with the should, which also allows our staff to be able to take things up on a case-by-case basis and remain flexible.
Okay, so in this case, Marissa can look at it and kind of determine, if this change is allowable, right? It's not it doesn't have to go back to the commission, and it doesn't have to delay it, right?
Correct. So
not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, so anytime that you have a change, it requires at least my team to review it and determine that this is an eligible site. And we also have to check to make sure that the supervisors are not at their quota as well. So there is some type of movement with it. It's not going to be like the full application process, but it still is a review period. And at that point, we can always make a determination. But if we need additional review, it could possibly go back to panel at the monthly meetings for review.
Okay, so let's say an IMG, somebody was promised a certain respectable salary, and then basically they enter the program, and then the employer says, oh no, you're getting minimum wage. So basically when they change it, will that be accounted for in the review process?
The change in pay?
Yeah.
I mean, again, we do not get into the actual employment aspects, and the law is pretty clear on us not getting into that.
Yeah, in that case, I think, we should maybe like, I don't know, like reconsider the single site option. Because I really do feel like it's gonna open up a can of worms that we don't want to.
Right. So, again, you can complain to the commission, but if it's about, an employment issue, an HR issue, that is outside of the scope of statutory authorization for the commission. If it goes on a long enough scale, yes, we can certainly we certainly have seen that where there's clear abuse signs. But when, as what you're talking about, Dr. Khalif, is an example of, what sounds like a bait and switch on pay, that's not something that the commission gets involved in. Dr. Bumkar?
I'm just wondering if we can include that language in the draft here where, if there's no change allowed in the 24 months, maybe some kind of situation or certain specific conditions that the board investigates and allows that to happen, to keep it open for the candidates to use that pathway if they need to.
So again, we won't be investigating an HR issue or a contractual issue between an employer and a clinician. I will point out that the should occur piece provides the flexibility that people are talking about here.
Micah, this is
Okay.
Heather. And with
All right.
the should, though, I think we need to include, it says should, but it doesn't give that, expressly give that sort of exception in there.
Okay.
And I think that should maybe, should occur at a
Yeah.
single site unless otherwise approved by the commission.
Yeah.
That'll give the commission the flexibility to look at, a second site,
Sure.
based on, some circumstances, right, that might be out there, that panel L could look at.
Okay, cool.
All right, that's better.
Thank you.
Okay. After that robust conversation, commissioners, how do you feel about these changes in sub C?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm good with it too.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, I'm going to accept these. Okay. So now we're moving along to sub 2. There were no suggested changes to these two subsections, A and B.
I think they look fine.
Looks good.
Yeah, looks fine.
And we do say here,
It does talk about gaps in that in B. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really good.
So to clarify, this is for the second 24-month period. The
Gotcha.
adjustment in language for the last one was for the first 24-month period.
got it.
Gotcha.
Oh, I see. While holding the, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it's good that it's addressed here too, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Okay. Any comments or changes about anything that's on the screen right now to A and B?
Not for me.
Nope.
Good
Okay.
by me.
Moving along. So we did make a change to the first part of C. I'm going to go ahead and accept the change so it's easier to read.
Looks good to me.
Agreed.
Agree.
And then we just change this for clarity purposes. It was just a little wonky before. Okay. Get down here as far as I can.
Quick question to
This is
Heather.
Yeah.
Is that osteocyte right, Heather?
Yeah, the osteocyte's wrong. It should be 1857. Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
Every time I write the osteocyte, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is right, but I'm gonna ask Heather.
Close, but not quite. I don't know what 59 is. Yeah, 59 is OT.
Oh, we don't want that. Okay, I'm going to accept this change in B so that it's easier to read. It's repetitive. Okay, any questions or comments about subsub B? Looks good to me.
It's good.
Just questions. Do we need to be further, define supervision, to be more specific, like direct or virtual supervision, or supervision will encompass those?
I would think it encompasses those, but Heather?
So you're thinking of adding
Yeah,
in B?
I'm just wondering, because, when we say provide supervision, it doesn't specify what if, to say, okay, well, we have a supervising physician, but it's a different site and it's like very far away. I don't know if we need to be more specific than that. We obviously prefer direct supervision, but I understand that other places probably say, well, we have a supervising physician, but at a nearby site, but not always directly in contact with the trainee.
Yeah, I think you could add a sentence or something to say when clinically appropriate supervision may take place via telehealth or something like that, if that's what you're thinking about.
Right.
When appropriate, supervision may occur virtually. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I would say virtually, but telehealth also sounds okay too.
Oh, occur via telehealth, right?
Yeah.
We could just say remotely.
Remotely?
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, that's good. That's better
I
than
prefer to stay away from naming specific technologies.
Yeah.
Dr. Fleming?
Yeah, I think that language is fine, but I was going to say the Washington Medical Commission already has that specified. When you do the physician practice agreement, it gives you three options, and in those three options, it includes this already. So I'm not sure it's really necessary here.
So, Commissioner, do you want to keep this sentence or?
That's true. If it's already in the practice agreement, do we need to add it here, or just doesn't matter if we add it anyway?
I mean, it's just reiterating.
Yeah, I would put it here is more enforceable than your form.
Gotcha.
So if
Okay.
you're going to allow it, I think it's good to have it in the rule.
Great.
And I would like to add to that where it's a fillable form, but unless you're actually filling it out, no one else is going to see it. So this would provide clarity for those who are maybe looking into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Marissa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
well, before we move on, I'm thinking of a couple of specifics. when appropriate, supervision may occur remotely, but the supervising physician must be within the state of Washington.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Let's see. I like and or but I don't know which one's appropriate.
I think and.
Okay. All right, are we good with this now, this addition?
We're good.
Like it.
Okay, moving on to C. This is the one we fussed with a little bit at the last meeting. I'm going to accept the changes here so that it's easier to read. Is that good? Are you okay with this change?
I'm okay with this.
Yeah. Good.
Okay,
Yes.
moving on to D and E.
I'm going to raise an issue with the second sentence in D. Rereading it, it confuses me. So I'm asking for help.
Yeah, I agree. What
I think, again, I might have been getting pretty punchy when I was drafting this. The intent was to say that they have to meet at a minimum every 30 days, but I don't know if that's too much or too little in the eyes of the commission. Like, what's the normal quality review MMR schedule that we see?
So frankly speaking, in the training world, each rotation is either 2 weeks or 4 weeks. So I think for every 4 weeks is reasonable. But then also we're talking about all these other stipulations in this particular pathway. So I'm not sure, but I think for the sake of simplicity, 30 days is, I think, reasonable. And the only other thing, if we want to, I don't know if that's even needed or not, is, meeting in person or no, I think let's leave that. I think this is reasonable.
And the statement is clear. Like, if you read that,
Statement could be, I think, slightly.
I
Thank
think
you.
you could just change it to say, hold on, let me do some fussy nonsense here. Oops. Is that better?
I would add which in front of must.
Which, yes.
Yep.
Well, quality review meetings between the two parties. Which, okay, yes, because that makes sense with what's
I think it makes more sense.
in 3.
Quality review meetings between the two parties, which must occur. Yeah. Okay. It could be with. Okay.
Are we good with this change? Does that make it more clear?
I'm good.
Oh, you got to delete that last sentence.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we were okay with. Ooh. Things that disappeared. All right, are we good with that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Looks good.
All right. Awesome. Moving on to sub E.
Looks good to me.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, moving on to 4. This we didn't make any changes to at the first meeting or the second meeting, or this meeting. We didn't suggest any changes. I think this is pretty cut and dried, the ones that are eligible.
Yeah, everything from A through E is directly out of the statute, so we can't change it.
Yep.
There we go.
So we will look at starting with F. And we added that to give them a pathway to request an expansion.
I have a question. So is F referring to the mental and behavioral health facilities? If it is, then you could just get rid of F, make like those eligible sites wishing for expansion. But I'm not sure what is different from F and 5.
Yeah, so I was worried about that. This was originally a compound provision related to the definition of primary care. And so there was those sites wishing to expand beyond that, submit a justified need and we'll evaluate it. So that's really what it's talking about there, but that's just the last half of what that original provision was. The first half of the original provision, I'm pretty sure, is further down.
Okay, so wait.
So I think F is maybe not where maybe we need to move it.
Does F apply here to practice sites eligible?
I mean, it was originally down under the definition of primary care, but at the last meeting, folks thought that it needed to be moved up here.
Okay.
But I
would be fine with it going back.
Yeah, I don't think it goes here.
Okay.
Yeah. Because this is sites, not practice like scope, right? So although I mean, I didn't know if F was trying to modify E or help the approval of those sites. But it sounds like no.
I agree. Because I think that in that case, we have to sort of define expansion. What does expansion mean? So I think
you could make it work by saying those eligible sites wishing to for an expansion in primary care scope or something must submit their request and documentation to the commission. But again, we haven't gotten to the primary care scope piece, so I think it may be confusing to read there.
Yeah, I agree. I think I delete it here and maybe we add it in back when we're talking about scope.
Do you remember? Was it?
Let me scroll down. I'll find it.
Okay, it wasn't part of 5.
I think it was under 374. Under.
Pardon my
Yeah,
scrolling.
374. What is that? 2D.
So is it in addition to 2E or 2D, or did we in addition?
Yeah, it's at the end of 2D.
So it's the last sentence of D. Okay.
And then I have a separate question about to Heather about the wisdom of including a specific email.
I don't think that's a good idea because if it ever changes, then you have to change the rule. I would just you want them, I think you've got in some of your rules, don't you have an address? Maybe you do that.
Yeah.
Email is difficult because it is easily lost or gotten into a spam or so, or you could just say by contacting the commission. But I think you're right. A specific email is not probably a best practice.
So just say in writing.
Just at the end of the commission, I would hit a period. We can further define what they have to do as far as the process internally.
Okay. And you are correct. We do have an address in WAC. So. Okay. Pardon the scrolling. I'm going to go back up here to where we were. I can find it. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Now moving to sub 5. Any questions or issues with sub 5 A and B?
No.
I'm good.
Okay. And then we just updated this to make it more explicit about the RCWs, the WACs, things like that.
Yeah, those were just my technical revisions to make sure we captured all of the statutes that we needed to. I think I left out a word though when I.
Well, let me
Go ahead.
accept it and then.
Shall be conducted. I left out a word.
This looks good to me.
Yep, it's good.
That looks good.
All right.
Just one. I would get rid of the C on 482. Just have it be 482.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving along to 373. Before we start on this, does anybody need to take like a quick little break? Because this meeting goes till 4. So is everybody okay to keep going? I see no complaints or hands raised. So, okay, we'll keep moving along then. All right, so moving on to 373, which is requirements and standards for clinical skills assessment evaluators. Any comments or questions about one or the changes that we made?
I'm fine with the first one.
So
Okay.
this so it's easier to read. Okay. All right, and then sub 2.
It's fine.
It looks good.
All right. We're done with that section. Moving on to 374, which is full and unrestricted physician license to practice primary care. And this is just a technical edit. So any questions about sub 1?
Looks fine.
Good.
Agreed.
Then 2 is just stating that the scope for this license is primary care, and then we define primary care. Does anyone have any questions about this definition or comments? Don't see. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Fleming.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I know we all struggled hard with this one last time we all met. So I did some digging, and Washington has under the WAC 246-562-010 defines primary care. And they, as far as physicians goes, it says board certified or board eligible family practice, general internal medicine, pediatrics, OB/GYN, geriatric medicine, or psychiatry. So my point I'm making is the state already has a law that defines this. So I'm just wondering, are we trying to redefine state law here or what? Short of that, I didn't have any other comment, but I know we all struggled with that a lot last time. So that's what I came up with.
Dr. Fleming, what was that site again? 246-562 what?
-010.
Okay. I think I would
It's
say that,
paragraph 15.
It's right
there.
here. Yeah.
yeah, so I think, my response to that is we've got what you're looking at is physician visa waivers, and that's a rule section. So, and Heather can jump in and tell me I'm wrong here, but I would view that as that's the definition for that purpose. This is the definition for this purpose. And so, I mean, if there's a definition somewhere in statute that says for the state of Washington, this is what primary care is, then I'd be all about it. But I think for their purpose, dealing with what they're having to issue, which I believe is J1 visa waivers, then that's where it's applying. So Heather?
Yeah, I mean, that definition applies to that section of WAC, and your definitions apply to your sections of WAC. I mean, they can be informative and you can look at them certainly. And I think it looks like it's fairly consistent what you have proposed with this. So, but yes, you get to define, the commission has the authority to define what primary care is for this specific license, and that's what you're doing in your rule. So yeah, I mean, there are lots of definitions of different things that are, multiple agencies have different definitions because they're used for a different purpose. So
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry, were you still reading that, Micah?
Mm-mm. Oh, sorry. I thought I was on mute. I do that out loud reading thing when I'm trying to understand.
Okay, so any other comments about the definition of primary care? Go ahead, Dr. Boomkar.
Hi, I just put it down in the chat here regarding that wording as to the first clinical contact before referrals. And behavioral health typically is referred from primary care as well as hospital medicine, correct? So will that change the way we practice?
I don't think so. So first off, the inclusion of behavioral health in the statute as considered primary care was intentional, I believe, on the part of the drafters, but also it's a political consideration and a reality of what we're facing with behavioral health access in this state. With respect to hospital med, it really was a consideration of talking to CMOs of rural hospitals and how they would like to use this license type. And the fact that, when you're a hospitalist, you are dealing with the patient there and you're not referring things out. And it really does function as a primary care person in a hospital setting. So that was really the thinking behind it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about this definition before we move on? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more.
No, go ahead.
Question, last one. So, if a candidate is being supervised by, let's say, an internal medicine practitioner for the entirety of the 4 years, let's say in a hospital setting or in a post-acute setting where there is no pediatric patients, would their unrestricted license allow them to practice pediatrics in that case if they want to, or it will be limited to primary care but adult primary care medicine?
So that's where there's a couple of considerations. So the first thing is we issue a physician and surgeon license generally. And so, take a family medicine board certified individual, there's nothing from us that's going to stop them from practice pediatrics. It's a risk factor that they take on. So, I mean, because, if they screw up, they get a complaint and they have to deal with all of that. The other thing to consider is in a hospital situation, the hospital is going to take what we have and they're going to narrow it significantly to what they are comfortable credentialing this individual for. So we have to remember that our language is not the end all and it shouldn't be the most restrictive thing in this process. We're going to have hospital credentialing groups, medical executive groups, and then the insurance impaneling who is all going to limit this after we write our rules.
All right. That's a safeguard. Great. Thank you.
Dr. Fleming?
Micah, I'm going to need your help with this one. I was totally fine with this language until I read it 3 times. And the thing that caught my attention was how we were defining primary care, where it says we're defined as the first contact the patient may experience. Both in Dr. Boomkar's program and our program, the providers there are not the first contact. They're actually managing patients in the continuum of care. So as patients transition from the hospital to the what we call post-acute setting and skilled nursing, and then back to their primary cares, they're managing that cohort of patients in that spectrum. By this definition, they would not be considered primary care. So that I just would like your take on that because it really kind of caught my attention on the third go around there.
I think when you consider everything under sub 2, it's meant as a clarification piece, but you would, if you looked at the specialties listed and you looked at the part A, you would certainly see that, that would be considered primary care. But if it's causing confusion for all the readers, then let's delete it.
Yeah, I'm just concerned where it says the first clinical contact, because they're not the first clinical contact. They're, like I said, maybe the second or third. If they came to the ER, went through the hospitals, and then now in the post-acute setting, they're the third contact. So by this definition, they would be excluded, and that's a real concern.
I agree with that. I was looking at that as well and pondering that.
So would it be changed instead of first clinical contact, I changed to as the primary clinical contact? Because essentially, if they go to hospital, getting hospitalist care and hospitalist then assume the primary attending role and basically essentially pass down from the ER to the the hospitals. Same thing with this in the clinical setting. The family physicians or general internists, they're the primary contact to managing the patient's health.
Do we even need the sentence?
Yeah, I was wondering the same.
Yeah.
Why do we need to specify the primary point of contact? Yeah.
I would just delete the sentence rather than try to wordsmith it.
Dr. Bumgar?
Oh, I was actually gonna say the same thing, that I don't know if even you need that language of the first contact in that.
So commissioners, are we fine with deleting that second sentence then? Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Dr. Chang?
Yeah, I can live without the second sentence.
Okay, so we did spend a lot of time talking about the specialties that are considered under that definition. We did a lot of editing to these two sections. Basically, for this part, we just moved psychiatry and behavioral health up to sub B, and then we changed sub C and moved some things down here. Now, I have been told there are some issues with how sub C is written, so we'll probably need to discuss that. But I think we're okay with moving psychiatry and behavioral health to sub B. Yeah.
Yeah.
I accept that, and then we will move to C. Go ahead, Mallory.
Hi, this is Mallory. I'm here on behalf of the American College of Emergency Physicians, the Washington chapter. And just on that section B, subsection B, wanted to say thanks for hearing out Dr. Sarah Hansen, our president, at the last workshop, and I appreciate you taking some of her feedback into consideration as you made some edits in this updated draft.
Thank you. Okay, so sub C has been reworked completely. So, yeah, we'll probably have lots of comments. So just, if you could read through it real quick, and then I'll give people like a 30 seconds or so to read through it, and then I'll, start the comments.
I think now that we have eliminated the first point of contact, I think we could take out emergency department now.
Yeah. I would take out emergency department. I agree with that. Urgent care or emergency department.
Okay, so it would just say, because I've been asked to remove this about office-based procedures as well. So it would just say primary care under this section may include non-surgical, obstetrical, and gynecological care, period.
Correct.
So I just want to ask the commissioner, so is your intent to say that this primary care license would not be permitted to work in urgent care or emergency department settings?
See, that's where it gets a little bit confusing, and I know there was a lot of back and forth last time also. Because see, in urgent care settings, sometimes, people who have, family practice background will work in an urgent care setting. Same thing with emergency room. I've seen folks do under like a minor ER kind of a thing. So that's where I think it gets a little confusing. So I think if we, to be quite honest, I think if we eliminate it, it will make things a lot more simple. And then maybe we could add like a provision to entertain this particular subgroup of providers or physicians.
How would you feel about leaving urgent care? Well, I don't know, but eliminating emergency.
And I was thinking about
department.
that. I was thinking about that. The only thing is, as I was saying, I have seen, physicians, with family practice background, family medicine background, who do work in a minor ER
I
setting.
have too.
Right. So
I
that's
too.
where it gets a little bit tricky.
The only reason I'm saying that is ED physicians are not primary care docs, which is why I was thinking they don't want to be known as a primary care physician either, because they're not. So that's why I was thinking if we took out emergency department.
I mean, I think one thing that I will point out, and this is again speaking with Eastern Washington CMOs who have expressed interest in this. While we can say emergency department physicians are not primary care, that's the intent. I think the reality is something different. People are going to emergency departments, unfortunately, to get primary care treatment more urgently, obviously. But
they do, but the ED docs are not their primary care. They're going there because of whatever reason that they are going to the ED, but they're not their primary care provider.
So that's I think 100% valid point. And actually what we're working towards is to mitigate some of those issues where we're trying to have more access to primary care so that folks don't end up in the emergency room and become like high utilizers or things of that nature. I don't know, how does everyone else feel? I know we have some raised hands.
I see Dr. Fleming and then Dr. Bumkar.
Yeah, Micah, I don't have any dog in this fight, but I know we're struggling with primary care, and maybe it might make more sense to just delete the word in first line in C, is just delete primary care and just say under this section, physicians may perform services in these areas and so forth and so forth, and just get rid of the primary care piece of it. Otherwise, we'll be struggling with this forever, trying to figure it out. And then that way, I think the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. And kind of go from there.
Commissioners, what do you think?
Does that make sense?
Dr. Fleming, we're still then saying that an ED doc is primary care.
And
they're not. That's my only.
Yeah, and I agree with that now. I know last time I was battling that they really should be, but in further reading, I agree they should not be. But to allow, right now, if you instead of being so myopic, if we look at the broader scope of things, we allow nurse practitioners and PAs to work in urgent care and ER with lesser training than what these physicians are going to have. So it's almost discriminatory to say they can't work there, but I think if we just eliminate the whole conversation of primary care and just say something along the lines of, furthermore, these physicians may work in these typical settings, and just not call it primary care.
These settings. Yeah, I'll have to fuss around with it, but continue the conversation.
Yeah, so just get rid of the word primary care in this whole section.
This is Heather. My only concern with that is this is a primary care license. So I don't think you can really get away with just deleting it there. It's not going to do much. And we're trying in this section to define what the scope of this license, which is a primary care license. So I agree it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now, as a board certified family medicine, I work in urgent cares. I have worked in ERs. So what makes me any better to be qualified as a family medicine doc under my license to work there? But we're saying docs that have been trained also in primary care can't work in these settings. It's discriminatory to do that.
I think it's not that they can't work in those settings, because in a hospital, there are family practice providers that are contracted to work in EDs. I'm aware of that. But however, you're not their primary care doc.
True. That's very true. That's why I'm saying eliminate the
No.
term primary care in the section and just allow for physicians under this program or under this license may work in these settings. And then you're done with the battle over what's primary care and what's not.
But
No,
Heather,
I hear you. I
comment-
hear you,
yeah.
Dr. Fleming.
Yeah.
Is it possible that we could say care provided by these physicians may include?
Yeah,
Would that?
I think that would work.
I actually object that. Honestly, I think that this license is all gearing towards primary care practice, and they are going to be getting the PCP license. That's the whole deal. Like, why are we doing this whole thing, right? It's the PCP, primary care. And so I strongly believe that the wording should not be taken, but maybe additional wording should be added where we are training them to the best of our ability under supervision into different scenarios, and then leave it up to the hospital to delineate or give them privileges according to their bylaws. So when they get hired into a job, leave it to the hospital to see if they want to credential them to perform those procedures. Because as a physician, when we're applying for jobs in ER, ICUs or hospitals, we are checking boxes where we are accepting certain procedures we can do or we cannot do. And for the procedures we mark there that I can do, maybe I can do intubations. We have to prove or give them a paper proving that we have done certain amount of intubations, let's say 5 or 10 under supervision to meet those criteria. So leaving the whole deal to the hospital, I think we were just talking in the past is we are doing all these things, but then leave it up to the credentialing committees to decide how much access they want. If it's a rural place, they might give them more access than in an urban place. So leaving those options open would make it more sense to have access to providers and patients in the rural communities as well. But this is just my opinion, yeah.
No, I agree with that. I think it's, yeah, leaving it in that kind of a realm makes far more sense than trying to say what they can or can't do as primary care.
Okay, so where have we landed? I mean, we're definitely going to delete this last part of this sentence about office-based procedures.
When a provider applies at a hospital for primary care privileges, they're getting, or ED privileges, you're getting an emergency department privilege form. If you're a primary care physician who is seeing patients as a primary care physician and or a hospitalist, you're getting a primary care hospitalist privilege form. You're not going to get a privilege form as a primary care doc to work in the ED as a primary care physician. You're going to get privileges for one or the other.
And I think when you continue to read this, primary care under this section may include non-surgical obs and gynae care, as well as services provided in an urgent care emergency setting that are within the scope of primary care. I think that also explains what we're trying to say when we say within the scope of primary care.
That would be the scope that the clinician chooses to apply for when they're filling up the credentialing paperwork.
In this section. And I think as we move further on, nothing in this section should be construed to limit further training and credentialing of a primary care license holder in surgical procedures considered part of the normal scope.
So is our goal to keep patients from going to the ED and thinking that's their primary care doc? And also, if you asked an ED doc, as I think I mentioned at our last meeting, if they felt like they were somebody's primary care physician, they would not want to be belt. They would not want to be labeled as such. The fact that people keep returning to an ED it's still not their primary care provider. That's where I get hung up.
Well, and we
Mhm.
and we can't really regulate that out of these rules, they're thinking
Right.
that that's their primary care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in the definition of primary care, they're not. But in their thinking, it is. So, and that's what yeah.
So
Anyway.
I would suggest we consider keeping it as broad as possible with the understanding that, again, insurance, credentialing at hospitals, medical executive committees, they're all going to limit this. And so the more we narrow, the fewer options there are for these license holders.
You're right, Mike. They will not give a primary care physician an ED privilege form unless they meet the criteria to be an ED provider.
But I also would raise that, under this program, it's entirely possible for one of these clinical experience folks to be supervised by an ED physician and practice actively for 4 years. And what do we say at the end of that? Are they suddenly not able to work in an ED?
Could you repeat that?
There's a scenario here where a clinical experience license holder could practice under the supervision of an emergency room physician in an emergency department for 4 years. And at the end of that, are we saying that they are not qualified to work in an ED?
Not if they meet the criteria in a hospital. No. If they meet the criteria to be an ED physician in a hospital, then they would be credentialed as such.
Okay.
But I'm just thinking, basically, Michael was saying that for the Eastern Washington, it's a critically accessed hospital, and it's the credentialing committee of each hospital that write specific, or tailor the requirement so they can be as loose as possible or as strict as possible, depends on, to meet their needs, right? So, and I don't think it's our job to try to limit that in the first place. And I actually like the C as it stands, in terms of language, because it does give options for those people who want to practice if they're being trained as an ED physician during all 4 years, and first they wanted to be as an ED physician, so which and they may potentially gear toward those critically accessed hospital, and because that allows them to practice as such, versus in a big city hospital, that won't allow that. To me, this is fine. Essentially, my bias is that being that I'm a family physicians actually say, well, that's all covered, rather than trying to bickering which specialty you're in. If you're trained as a family physician, technically you can be have a admitting privilege to a hospital, versus that you just want to provide primary care in the clinic setting.
I would say that I agree with leave it up to the hospital when their training is complete, because the surveyor will come in and look at the privilege form and look at what that provider is doing and what their privilege form states they can and can't do. So once they're credentialed at the hospital in whatever training they choose, they'll be the ones on the hook to provide the correct. So, and I know and I'm not saying put that in our rules, but at all, Amelia, but I would say that that's where when they're finished with their training and they go on to work in a hospital or urgent care or wherever they work, they will credential them as such with whatever training they had. So.
And I think is that it may potentially in reality is that the path of least resistance is trying to push those docs to be in an ambulatory setting in the primary care clinic, which is probably it's basically the population selects it out, rather than they basically want to be kind of into the more restricting, more regulated hospital setting or ED setting.
Right.
And I was I was responding to Mohammed's comment.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I wasn't responding to you. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
So how it sits now after that discussion, are we okay with how it sits now? I mean, I agree that we should keep it pretty broad so that there's plenty of opportunity for these licensees.
And like I said before, I'm actually like this this revision, pretty well, better than the last time when we meet, so I'm okay with this one, given that we're not trying to limit their, ability to find work in the, various setting. It's up to, and like I said, I figured that, hospital setting, they will probably, select out the group, and which may potentially end up in reality that they will limit their ability to apply to a hospital.
Go ahead, Dr. Khalif.
Yeah, my question is, like, as written right now with the changes that, Amelia kind of edited out, would it prevent people from, like, working in the urgent care or department, as long as they have the, that scope of what they're doing as written? So if not, maybe nothing is broken. I don't know. What is your understanding of? I would love to, like, hear your thoughts. Micah, is there anything that's preventing them right now from this language as written?
So, two things. We removed these specialties from what I think was sub B. So they're not generalisted, but the presence of may is permissive, so they can. And I think that's the point. But we wanted to after the debate last meeting, we wanted to specifically call out those practice areas as, I guess, a heightened sense of concern. And so, that's the reason for this. The second sentence, I think, is, as you know, Mohammed, is what is being requested by rural hospitals, to where, if they have someone working on OB and it's just non-surgical stuff, at some point they may need to credential them for surgical C-section. And so, they want the ability to be able to precept and train them on X number of procedures and then be able to credential them in that sense.
Okay, amazing. So, so the language as written right now is good enough for that flexibility to happen right now, right?
That's how I read it. If someone else has a different interpretation, please speak up.
That's how I read it too. So I think basically, I think then nothing's broken, in my opinion.
Okay, so commissioners, are you good with how sub C is written now?
I would recommend removing emergency department from this.
Okay,
The
other
more we
thoughts?
talk about,
go ahead.
the more we talk about it, just makes sense to that, urgent care is more inclusive, because opening that can of worm with the emergency department, I think it's a bit of an overstretch to me.
Go ahead, Dr. Fleming.
I think if you remove that, I think you just defeated what I can, and Micah, you can speak for yourself, but out in the rural setting where the acute access hospitals are, where they're actually asking the commission to give them that opportunity to train the docs in those extreme remote areas. If you remove the emergency department from that language, then you just whack those hospitals out in that area. If I interpret this right, am I off on that one, Micah?
Are they asking them to be ER docs or ER or primary care docs in the rural settings?
I think the issue is if you go to those rural hospitals, what you have in the ERs are nurse practitioners and PAs. And they're wanting to be able to bring in physicians to work in those settings. And they would like the flexibility to if, again, if this is someone who had 4 years of being supervised by an ED doc, and that is what they did their supervised practice in. If we remove emergency department setting as an option, what are we doing there?
Micah, in an urgent care, even in an urgent care, acute care setting, like say Alaska or some of the other places that are urgent care, a regulator, Joint Commissioner, DNV will not approve of a PA or an NP running an ED. There has to be either an ED trained or a family medicine trained doc that can be an ED doc to be in that emergency department. It can't just be an NP or a PA, even if it's a rural setting.
Right. I don't think I'm talking about running the ED. I'm talking about it's being staffed by them. And
even that's a
quote,
problem.
the quote that I get is in those Eastern hospitals, after 6 p.m., there's not a physician in sight. So it's happening.
That's a problem.
I think you make a strong point, Micah. In that case, then let's just keep this as it is and just move forward. I think we have
exhausted it.
Yeah, we have deliberated quite a bit over this.
Yeah,
let's just keep it.
Yeah, actually, I'm okay with this because we're talking about, the unrestricted license to practice primary care. We're not, and basically, Micah pointed out is just that we're not talking about their training. If say if they're training at by or supervise the emergency clinician all 4 years, that means is that that's what they're familiar with, and they'll be seeking the jobs in that area. Is kind of under this license. So I just I'm fine with this language because I don't want to kind of X them out and say, oh yeah, you just got to run training. You had all your 4-year training in emergency medicine, and yet you can't find work here.
Yeah.
And remember, if we do discover that there's an issue, we can always come back and amend the rules.
Okay.
Bingo. See, that's what I was looking for. Thank you for that.
Okay, good. But I'm good.
Go ahead, Dr. Bukar.
Yeah, so last one, just to close the loop here. Are we defining later on what the surgical procedures are considered a part of normal scope of PCP? Because that's what the paragraph reads, right? Nothing in this section should be construed to limit further training and credentialing of a primary care holder in surgical procedures considered part of the normal scope of the primary care specialties listed in the section. Are we defining what procedures or leaving it up to the hospitals?
We're leaving that up to the credentialers.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. I'm glad we finally settled sub C. All right, so moving on to sub D. We've already dealt with this part. If you feel like we need to change that first sentence. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi, good afternoon. Alex Whithanger speaking on behalf of the Washington State Medical Association. Before I forget, just wanted to say appreciate the conversations at this workshop and the last workshop. Acknowledge there's been a lot of important changes that have been made through the iterations of these conversations and these drafts. I did today just have a comment on D. We would love to see any changes or expansions to the definition here go through a rulemaking process. We think that's really important. I think these workshops are kind of a good reflection of all of the important feedback from stakeholders and impacted parties to help shape these rules. So would love to see some language making sure that there's a rulemaking process that would be required if we're going to be changing things. Thanks.
Well, if we make any changes to these rules, we have to go through the rulemaking process, unless it's like technical edits where we're changing a the to an and or something like that. That's a different matter. But yeah, we'll definitely go through the process again.
So
Do you
to
have
be
something
clear,
to-
I
Okay.
want to clarify here. So what Alex is asking for is if any changes under D come through, they would like it to come through the rulemaking process. I will disagree with that because as we've seen with the debate previous, there's a lot of back and forth, um, which in the rulemaking process in these debates, you're not going to cover every single eventuality. And so that's what that provision is about, is if there's something that we left out, if there's some sort of demonstrated need, this is not going to be staff making the decision here. This is something that goes to the commission to consider if it's a worthy ask or not. Given how broadly we've already set this, I don't anticipate that it would be used. But what I can commit to is should this go forward and if we start getting waylaid with requests, we should bring that. We'll have a conversation with WISMA about what we're getting and how many we're getting. And if it warrants coming back to the rules, we should certainly do that.
Thanks, Micah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I recognize, wouldn't be a staff level decision, but I think the workshops today really do demonstrate all the good, important feedback the folks on this Zoom call have. So would want to make sure that we're included in those conversations.
Sure.
Okay, so are we good with D as it reads now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So then moving on to sub 3, which is about converting their CE license to a primary care license. So I think for the most part, Micah, if I recall, sub 3 is basically a reiteration of what's throughout these rules already. Just telling them again.
Yeah. So I can't remember if sub 3 covers what I think it does. So it should be just a summation of what's come before as the requirements. So it may look like a restatement, but just for clarity, it was like, all right, we're going to put all the requirements here.
Yeah.
And then I feel like there's something about the conversion process.
I think so.
Yeah, sorry, that's in C. Okay. And for everyone's benefit, I think today actually is when the notice came out that the departments opened up rule or filed a 101 on rulemaking for the fees.
It was last week.
Oh, last week. Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is coming forward.
Yep. And that's a separate rulemaking process that is actually done by the secretary's office. So I will send out notifications about what's going on with that process, but we don't have any control in that process. So okay, so the only thing we did in sub BI was I just cleaned up the language a little bit. But everything else here, I don't think we made a lot of big changes here. We just kind of tried to clarify what we meant by some of these. Does anyone have any questions or comments about what's on the screen right now?
I have one question. So in 2i, and I think others were saying the prerequisite period, but in 3i, you changed it to supervised practice period.
Which one is correct?
I've just been using prerequisite, but it's up to the commissioners to decide what's clearer or what they want.
If we've been using prerequisite throughout this document, then we should go with that.
I agree.
And then Dr. Bumkar, could you clarify what you're asking?
What I'm trying to say is that let's say somebody joined the program in 2022, would they meet the requirements by 2026, 4 years, or does it start all over again?
If I'm understanding what you're saying, so the prerequisite period is 24 months, and that's governed by some specifics that we've got in the rule above. So That I guess technically, yes, they would get retroactive credit for that prerequisite piece, but they would not get any sort of retroactive credit for the graduate pathway 24 months piece.
Mm.
That makes sense?
I'm a little bit more confused. Yeah, so maybe I'm not understanding it and I'm on the same page, but can you please explain that again?
Okay, so you've got the two 24-month periods, right? The
Yeah.
prerequisite period before you
Mhm.
go into the pathway, and then the 24-month period of the pathway.
Yes.
We've got it written to where you do receive, you can receive the 24 months prior to the effective date of these rules, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know when the rules will be effective, but let's just say that they're effective November 1 of this year. Practice in that prerequisite period of 24 months would be counted or could be counted if they decided to apply to the graduate program if it occurred prior to the effective date of these rules, because they were practicing, they were supervised, they had met all of those prerequisites. It's just that the rules hadn't been effective yet. So we would
Gotcha.
count that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. And that
Okay.
also means that in November, let's say for November, if they have the rules going on, fast forward 12 months later, they are all fully qualified for a license?
No, I don't. I talked to Heather about this, and Heather, you can jump in and remind me where we landed. It seemed that the spirit and the letter of the law would allow for the prerequisite period to be counted before the rules, but not the 24 months of the graduate program.
Gotcha. Okay, got you. Thank you.
That's correct, because there were different requirements on those.
Yeah.
Those months. But yes, the prerequisite, I guess, 24 months. Yes, those count before or could count right now.
Mm-hmm.
Go
Dr.
ahead,
Fleming?
Dr. Fleming.
So, Mike, I'm a little bit confused because I thought earlier in this document there was a statement that said those candidates that were entered into the program July 1st of 2021 or forward were grandfathered into this program and that their time would count. But now I hear you saying only half of it would count.
So yeah, the issue is about the July 1 eligibility. So they're not eligible to participate in this program if they don't have a clinical experience license on or before July 1, 2026. So for that reason, we could count as already, as time served, the 24 months for prerequisite, but we could not count as time served the 24 months in an eligible site because the rules didn't exist and the eligible site didn't exist until such a time as the rules become effective. Does that make sense?
Yes and no. So if you have candidates that are in programs theoretically from 2021 to 2026 and they have all their documentation to support meeting all the requirements that the commission is now considering, why would we not want to allow those folks to go forward for their full licensure if they meet all the requirements?
And then I'm going to appeal to Heather here to explain it because I don't think I'm explaining it right. Heather?
Yeah, so the approved site, the whole primary care pilot project isn't implemented until the rules are effective. So there's no criteria. All of this stuff is fleshed out. So those programs may or may not be an eligible site. I don't know if that's explaining it to you, but there's I guess 48 months total, right, to get the primary care license, primary practice license. And those 24 months prior that they've been working prior to implementing the rules count towards that first 24 months. And then once the rules are in effect, they can get the approved site, make sure they have the approved site, the correct supervisor, all of those things that are required by the rules. And then they could start their 24 months for the pilot.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Oksana.
Hi, my name is Oksana Nestorenko. I'm one of the MDCE license holders, and I have finished a 4-year period already just recently, a week ago. So thank you so much for a very productive discussion. I just wanted to clarify. So if the program gets licensed as a pilot program, that means that a physician will have to start additional 2-year program if it's already, the program is already licensed, or is there a way to get that licensed, kind of looking back at the 2 years that was already completed? Thank you.
Based off of what Heather said with respect to the effective date of the rules, I believe the answer is no. It will count. We will obviously look at the 24 months as satisfying the prerequisite period, but again, the rules, the implementation of that bill is not effective until the rules are effective, and therefore we can't start that clock until those rules are effective.
Thank you so much for clarification. I do have a concern regarding, having multiple physicians, particularly that work with me in the program, me being one of them, but there are more that the idea of creating the pathway to a full licensure was to keep physicians in the state by adding another 2 years to their practice to get to the full licensure. I'm afraid that there's going to be a lot of physicians lost to other states and residencies, unfortunately, but this is up to Washington Medical Commission to consider.
And again, it's not up to us. This is the fact that the bill created this year and set the time frame of starting it on July 1. That's defining what we have to do here. And it said that we had to do the rules. So again, that's defining the timeline that we have to do.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about what is on the screen right now?
No, it looks good to me.
Yeah, same.
It looks fine.
We'll move down to other little Roman numerals. Any questions or comments about these items?
Looks good. Have any.
Looks fine.
And then those last 3 Roman numerals.
Looks fine.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, and then moving to sub C. That's just like technical information about
Yeah,
the license and how much it costs.
looks good. Thanks.
Okay, so sub D, I had a question. Someone had asked if this license is not allowed to participate in these sections of rule, which is background check permit, military permit, transition from residency to full license.
And that's a question to Heather. It's an exclusions provision, and we just want to make sure that by doing it this way, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I think because those are required, a full license in another state that's assume is going to require the residency, and all of these are assuming I think they're mostly, military spouse. All of those are based on the residency. So I agree that those aren't available for the CE license.
All right, thank you.
Is this a unconfusing way to say this?
Does this mean they can't? Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
No.
Oh, so does this mean when they graduate they can't like work at a VA or something?
No. So we have portions of 246919 that address how we do when we issue a background check permit. So basically everything is done except for that fingerprint based background check that's required. And so we will issue a background check permit based off of that. Then military permit, there's some provisions where we have to do a military permit or military spouse permit. And then there's a section in rule that talks about transitioning from a residency license to a full license. Obviously, that wouldn't apply here because you're not going from residency, but we wanted to have that same process in place, which is why you have that provision in C.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
And then
And
Micah,
I think it's fine. I think it's fine how you
ahead.
have it, Amelia,
Okay.
Micah.
Okay. And then we're exempting it from what you said, 422. I'm just checking in. Okay, got it. All right. Moving on. I will delete this comment now. All right. And then we have E and F, and that's it. Does anyone have any questions about E or F?
I don't have any. It looks good to me.
It looks good.
Looks good.
Okay. All right. Well, we have like 25 minutes left. Does anyone have anything else they would like to bring up or discuss? I think we have resolved all of our questions. I'm going to scroll a little bit here. But go ahead. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. I don't see any. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, Ms. Blake, you can go ahead with the script.
All righty. Thanks all for your participation. Much appreciated. Ms. Boyd will now outline the next steps.
Okay, give me just a moment to get myself all together here.
Are there any questions about the schedule or rules process once Amelia has, I do see one hand up, Amelia. Dr. Fleming, do you have your hand up?
Nope, that's not my hand.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw your hand up.
He just gave a thumbs up in the chat.
He gave a thumbs up.
Oh,
yeah.
a thumbs up. I was looking at a different screen. Okay, thanks.
No worries, I was just responding to Mike's comment.
Okay, at the Commission's August 21st, 2026 business meeting, we will request to initiate the next step in the rulemaking process, which is the CR 102 or proposed rulemaking. If that request is approved, the hearing is tentatively scheduled for November 20th, which is the business meeting after the August one. And if the rule is adopted during that hearing, the CR 103 or rulemaking order should be filed in around January of next year, and then the rules will be effective 31 days after the CR 103 is filed. Does anyone have any questions about this process? Doesn't look like it. And I just want to note that all of our business meetings are open to the public. And then our rule hearings are always open to the public if you want to come and give testimony. Also, there will be a 31-day comment period prior to the hearing, and that's out on DOH's site, which I will send a notification out about. And then I just wanted to quickly call attention to the comments that are in the packet. We didn't discuss any of the comments. All of them are supportive of this rulemaking, as far as I could tell. So I didn't feel that we needed to address each one because they're basically saying this is a good thing that we're doing. So does anyone have any? Yes, go ahead.
Just a clarification on that statement. There was one negative, and we addressed that at the last rulemaking hearing. Everything else that came in since then has been positive.
Yeah. Yeah, because, and then you, Micah, addressed it actually on the website too, so which I thought was good. Okay, so does anyone have any questions before we let Miss Blake adjourn our workshop? All right, Miss Blake, you are free to adjourn us. Oh, is she still there? She's frozen for me.
Thank you, guys. She looks frozen. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It looks like she popped out. Well, I will go ahead and adjourn the workshop then. Thank you, everyone.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.